Hi, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is part 2 of help. My husband, wife, partner wants a camera, and I discussed an interim, I'll share a little bit more of that in a minute, but I discussed the books that you can get that can help you in your learning of photography when you get a beginner's camera. But I didn't talk about what cameras I would recommend. So I'm going to do a little bit about that today, and I'll show you the one that I'll be recommending that I lend to my friend's husband, which is a Pentax KR. I'll show you that in a moment. So, however, let's have a talk about some of these cameras. I think you've got to, if you've got the money and you want to buy an entry-level brand new camera, well, I would get a brand new Canon entry-level digital SLR, or I would go for a Pentax digital entry SLR digital camera. And you can look them up, and they're a bit more expensive, and they've got all the bells and whistles. But the ones I'm recommending today are a little bit older cameras, which you might want to cut your teeth on. So, the first one I would recommend, which I've got a video, and I'll put a link underneath about this on my, where I've talked about this camera on my YouTube channel before. It's the Canon 400D. Now that's got a big lens on it there. You can get a standard lens that goes on that. This is the Canon 400D. I'll turn it on now. One of the interesting things is that you don't have any video on this, and so basically you have all manual controls. It's the same as if you were using a film camera. You don't have video, and you don't have automatic ISO, or that's the amount of light that is let in onto the sensor. So when you go to the ISO button, which is just there, it should give you a choice. You can see the choices there, and you can toggle between those choices. Now, in the old days of film, you were stuck with whatever film was in your camera with the ISO, but with these sort of cameras you can toggle back and forth and use whatever ISO you want to let the light in. So it's a very good, going on from when if you were doing film like I was in the old days, this was a very good entry-level digital SLR, and it's still a good SLR. I still use it quite often. I've got a bigger battery pack on the bottom. You don't have to have one of those, but it's a very good camera. It's autofocus, and you've got all sorts of settings on it. You've got a program setting, which is important. You might be able to see up there. You see that? You've got a program setting. You've got shutter speed, which is TV, aperture, which is AV, M, which is manual, and you've got some symbols around the side there that show you different scene settings. So this is a very good beginner's camera, and I'll put a link underneath where I've talked about this being a really good beginner's camera afterwards. You can still pick these up second hand for not very much money at all, and even the 500D and the 350D before it are good learner's cameras to begin with, to learn how to do photography and digital photography. The only one in this one here, this does take a compact flash card, which might be a little bit harder to get hold of these days. So that's a compact flash card, which is a bit bigger than the SD cards that you get now. But you can still get them, and some cameras, some of the professional cameras, have gone back to compact flash as well as the SD cards. So the other Canon I was hoping to show you was my Canon 700D, but I don't know where it is. And that's one of my favourite digital SLRs. I've been looking for it this morning, so I've got to try and find that. I hope I haven't left it somewhere, which I could. And but before I had the 700D, after I had the 400D, I bought the 600D and then the 700D. I swapped the 600D with my friend Len, whose camera, he has Parkinson's disease, and he was really struggling with learning how to use quite a complicated camera, which is the one that I'm filming you on here at the moment, the Olympus OMD EM5 Mark II. It's a beautiful little camera, but very complicated for a beginner, and he really struggled with it. But I was at a meeting with Len on Monday and a few other photographers, friends, the other day, and we were talking about this very thing, which is the best camera to get, and he said, this one, I've got the 600D, it's a great camera. So there you are, there's someone who was an outright beginner when he started, and he had no idea how to use this Olympus, even though he got some good photos with it. It was very confusing, and that's why we ended up doing a swap. So he's got the 600D and I've got the Olympus. The next step up from the 600D is the 700D, which is a beautiful camera. And the good thing about both those cameras, the 600D and the 700D, is that they have flip-out screens. So you can hold the camera up, down, all over the place. I'll just see if I've got one here that does that. Yeah, this one here. This is another one that I would recommend, which is a little bit more advanced than the one I'm talking about. But this is the Nikon D60. Now this has, I'll just turn this on. I think I can turn this on, up the back here. And this also has a flip out screen. So you can see there, you've got some settings there on the menu, and you can hold it down low. You can stand up and look down on it like that to look at your scene, whatever's there. What have I done now? Yeah, so I can just look at there what's on there. I can take photos, I can do whatever I want to do with that. So that's the Nikon 5200, and that is a beautiful camera. You want to get the Nikon, if you get the Nikon lenses, you get these DX lenses with VR on it, which has got vibration reduction. Now the Pentax camera, which I'll recommend in a minute, the Pentax KR and the Pentax KX, they're entry-level cameras. They have inbuilt image stabilization, whereas the Canon ones and the Nikon ones, you can buy lenses that have the stabilization built into the lens. But all of the Pentax cameras, they have stabilization built into the camera body, so that whatever lens you use, even if it's one built back in the 1950s, with an adapter you can put it on your digital camera and it will keep it steady. So there you go. So we've talked about the Canon, another Nikon one, similar to the Canon 400D, is this one here, which is the Nikon D60. Now this takes an SD card, but it doesn't. It's got a big lens on it there. It's got a 55 to 300 zoom lens, which is also a vibration reduction lens, beautiful lens. But this one here, it doesn't have video on. So in some ways it's similar to the Canon 400D, but it's a beautiful camera. And with these lenses, you get some of the sharpest photos you'll ever get. That's a beautiful lens for doing sport and wildlife and birds and all that sort of stuff. So that's the D60. And it's only, I think, a 10 megapixel camera, as is the Canon 400D. But that doesn't matter, that's all you need. I've even got a Pentax TD, which is a 6 megapixel camera, which I started off with. And that is a fine camera, and you get good results. You don't, unless you're a professional, you don't need this huge amount of megapixels. So there you go, that's the Canon, the Canons and the Nikons. And then you come to the Pentaxes. So I've talked about the Pentax KX before on my YouTube channel, and I'll put a link underneath where I've talked about this camera, because there's also a film version of the Pentax KX. But this is a beautiful camera. It's got a little standard 18 to 55mm zoom. As I said, it's got inbuilt stabilization. The follow-up camera to that one was the Pentax KR. This has got a nice big zoom on it, this one here. But the Pentax KR, to all intents and purposes, is very, very similar to the Pentax KX. And either one of these cameras are brilliant entry-level cameras. And one of the good things about them is they have these inbuilt filters where you can actually set them to take all sorts of special effects. You can do all sorts of manipulation of your photos without even having to use a computer. You just do it all in camera. And it's very easy to use. And after you take a photo, you can apply those different special effects settings. I might put a link underneath where I've done a blog about some of that. But these are really good entry-level cameras, and you can find them around the place second-hand for a good price. So I would recommend... wait a minute, that was the previous video just coming up. I just had that up on the screen and it's giving me some light onto my face. So there you go, there's a few. I mean, if you wanted to get a point-and-shoot camera, this one here I picked up for $50 in a, I think I've reviewed this on my channel as well. $50 for where are we? On off. For $50 in a second-hand shop or an op shop, antique shop, and that's a beautiful little Canon PowerShot SX170IS, and that does the whole lot. It's got all the same sort of settings as a digital SLR. It looks like a digital SLR, but it's not. You just got a little screen on the back. You can probably see me there. Where are we? Yeah, I think you might be able to see me now. So this is a beautiful little camera, and I've used this, and it's a good little learner's camera. You don't have a viewfinder you can look through though. You've got to use the screen on the back. So these sort of little Nikon cameras and some of the Canon ones are beautiful little cameras, great for travel photography, and I can talk a little bit more about that later on. Anyway, they're just a few of the cameras that, I mean, you can spend a lot of money on a brand new entry-level digital SLR. You could go mirrorless, but I wouldn't go mirrorless to start with, although you might want to look into that, what mirrorless cameras are about. This one we're filming on here, the Olympus, is a mirrorless camera, and they've got their advantages and disadvantages. However, there you go. That's just a little shout out, sort of the cameras. This Pentax KR is the one I'm intending to lend to my friend's husband to see if he can cut his teeth on that. So have a think about it. If you're just wanting to get your partner started in photography, or they're wanting to start in it and you don't know what to advise them, or you want to give them a present, you could probably look at some of those, or let them watch this video and see what they think if they're wanting to get into photography. I'll put a little bit more next time. I'll do a part 3 of this, and along the lines of, if my partner wants to get into film photography, where do I start? So part 3 of this will probably be along those lines. So once again, thanks for watching. Like if you like, subscribe if you wish, and I'll see you next time.